Hey, so in today's video, I'd like to talk to you about why the difference between an insult and a good criticism is something we should be able to understand, something we should be able to recognize and know and work with. So before we get into it, I just want to check with you about something. Just be honest. There's been a time where you've been given some criticism and you take it like an insult or like they're putting you down. Even if just for a moment. Maybe it was good criticism. Maybe you actually did figure that out. But there's been a time where you've gotten criticism and you feel like it was more an insult, even if at first. It could be with anyone. It could be with literally anyone. Someone you don't know, someone you do know. I know one of the biggest ones is like teachers. I'm pretty sure we've all had it with teachers, haven't we? Parents and teachers, that's just the way it is. Reminds me of like when I was in a younger grade, I had a teacher who was pretty strict. So when you'd mess up with her, she'd give you the rundown in a way that almost felt like an insult. It felt like humiliation. But when I look back at it now, it doesn't look like that at all. It was good teaching. It was strictness. It was order in a way. It wasn't like she was humiliating people. No. That's not how it went. So I thank her for it. She never did that stuff. She never humiliated anyone. It's just that being young, in that time, I took that criticism, which now I view as valid, and I almost shrugged it off like it was an insult. We've all had that time. We've all had that time where someone's given us the rundown and it feels like it's an insult. Even still today, if just for a moment, we all have it. So, what's the difference? Let's start with that. What's really the difference between an insult and a good criticism? Well, we already know that an insult is just purely rude. There's no backing there. There's no meaning there. It's just rude. That's it. And if you allow it to get to you, it's painful. So, we already know an insult is just a bad thing altogether. A good criticism, though, it's advice. It's a chance for self-reflection. It's a chance to be better. It's a chance to do more. To get a second pair of eyes, to look at you, tell you what they think you should look at, they think you should try, and then you get to reflect on that. And you get to think, well, what if I did do that? What if I did try that? And it's just a perfect chance to grow. But you probably already knew that, right? Then why do most people blur the line? Because it seems so clear, doesn't it? When we repeat it. That one is purely bad and has no benefits, but the other's good and it has benefits. Sure, it might hurt a little, but it's good all around. And I'm talking good criticism, not bad criticism. There's a difference there too. But for the purpose of this video, we're going to stick to good criticism. So we know that the line there is pretty thick. We can see it. It's there. We know that the two are different. But why do we blur it all the time? Why do we do that? Because we more often than not, even if just for a moment, will blur that line. And that's that. I'm not going to lie, I still do it sometimes. It just is. But why do we blur it? Well, a criticism is a pick at you, essentially. An insult is also a pick at you, in a way. But the criticism is more of a constructed pick at you. It makes you think, this person actually thought about what I was doing and they thought about what I could do better. They pick me apart on the negative side and they pick me apart on the positive side too. So the criticism itself, you already know that person picked you apart. Even if just a little in some aspect, you know they picked you apart. So that already feels bad in a way. Because we don't like to be judged. No, nobody really likes to be judged. I mean, I'm not going to say that there's everyone out there who does or doesn't like to be judged, but let's be honest, nobody really likes getting another set of eyes to look at you and say what you're doing is wrong. Because that's just not how we work. We like to think our beliefs are correct, if not to a certain, it doesn't have to be 100% correct, but to a certain degree correct. And that's the way we're going to live. So when people tell us not to live that way, when people tell us that we are a little bit wrong, yeah, we're going to take some offense to it. Which is where we blur it into an insult. That's where we blur the line. Because they pick us apart, and that already gets us thinking about how we don't want to be judged. We don't want to be looked at like this. We don't want to hear that. This is my reality. This is the way I'm living. What could they know? So we think about that, and we blur that line that is so very thick when you think about it. That line is gigantic. But we blur it just like that, and we combine the two, and we think this criticism is an insult. I mean, I'm not saying everyone does this, but for the hypothetical situation, we blur that line, and it becomes an insult. This is not what we want. This is not what we want at all. The only way to really get around this one, at least that I find, is that you need to look at what they said, and you need to understand how it was said. You need to understand, what does it really mean? Because if someone picked you apart in a reasonable way, then it's a good criticism. That's good. That's good. That isn't an insult. You might get hurt by it a little, and it might sting you just a tiny bit. But if you look at it and you say, they have a good point, they have a good reason to say that, then it's a good criticism. Whereas if you don't know how to do that, then you're just going to blur the line. You're never going to take criticism. You're going to think it's always an insult. You're going to think everybody's just trying to bring you down. And I'm not saying everyone isn't going to do that. There's going to be people who are going to try and just purely bring you down. They're going to do the most they can. They're going to give you insults. They're going to do worse than that. Whatever it may be, they will try to bring you down. There will be people like that. But we need to know the differences between the two. And the only way to really get that is to look at the actions and look at the words that they put out and understand what that really means. Because if a person says, I don't like your face, that isn't really a criticism. You can't morph your face into something else. You can't change that. So what are you going to do? But if somebody says, say, I don't like your dressing style. I think it's too this, not enough that, whatever it might be. Sure, that's not the biggest criticism, but for the situation, we look at that and we say, you know, I don't like that. They judged my dressing style. I like this style. But then if you think about it a bit more, you think, well, actually, maybe I could add something. Maybe I could get rid of another thing. Maybe. You never know. There's a difference, because you can change your dressing style, you can't change your face. So you see the difference, right? You just have to know what it means. It's a purely basic thing. I'm not asking you to do the deepest dive. You will in some cases. There will be days where you'll need to go deep, but think about just the basic facts of it. Think about what it means, and if you can change it, that's probably a criticism instead of an insult. That's already like the first check. Can you even change it? Can you even modify it, meddle with it, anything? And if you can, it's probably a criticism. It's probably more that than an insult. But then you get into the territory of good and bad criticisms. That's a different video. But for now, I just want to talk about the difference between an insult and a criticism. You need to know how to understand it, and you need to know how to deal with it. Because criticisms will always hurt, insults will always hurt. That's just the reality of it. But you can benefit from both. So why not? Why not? Anyway, that's about it for the lesson here. I'm trying to keep it concise, because funny enough, here's the thing. I received criticism from another video from some people, and I think what he said was you speak a lot without saying much. And that was like that was it was crazy. It made me think so much. It made me reflect, and it was crazy. It was like that second pair of eyes video that I made. But I had that concern in my mind that I was speaking too much and not really, like I was repeating myself, not saying the right things and all that. I had the concern of that for a while, actually. But then I got that criticism, kind of confirmed it, and instead of taking it like an insult, instead of thinking that, he was just trying to shame me for talking the way I talk or spit on the way that I do things. I thought he analyzed it, he picked it apart, and this is what he found. And it confirms one of my suspicions. So it's an insult. Or, I mean, it's a criticism. It's not an insult. So let's give it a go. That's the whole purpose of this, or the whole reason for this video, is I was looking at that and it just had me thinking, and then I was like, well, we got to make a video on it. So that's why we're making the video. And I hope it was more concise, because I'm trying to keep it more concise. I don't know if the length is longer or shorter, but I'm trying to keep it like packed in. We're trying to make it snappy, you know what I mean? But let me know what you think. I think this one was more snappy. This part's a little rant, so I'm kind of bringing it back into what I'm trying to get away from. But this is a rant between the two of us for just a second. Sorry for taking your time on that. But yeah. Point is, I took that criticism. It hurt me at first, but I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, you know what? He's right. That's not an insult. That's a criticism. And it's a good one. It's a great one. So I applied. I'm applying, I guess you'd say. I'm applying the criticism, and I'm trying to take a different route. So that works for me. It's a win-win, isn't it? So I hope this video helped you a ton. You really need to know this. You really need to know the difference between criticism and an insult. I don't like to say that you really need something too much, but this is one of those things that basically everybody's going to need to know, because everybody's going to run into it. You're always going to be criticized. You're always going to be insulted. That's how everyone's going to live. So you need to know the difference, because you can benefit if you do, and you can deal with things easier as well, because if you get an insult thrown at you, you'll have an easier time dealing with it if you think, that didn't pick me apart at all. So what does that mean? It means nothing. Nothing. If it means nothing, it's not really going to affect you. So, yeah, either way it goes, I think this is a lesson that everybody needs to actually understand in some way, because we're all going to go through it. But this is my view on it. This is the way I handle it, and I hope you can find some help with it. So that's it. My challenge for you today, it's kind of for the future, I guess you'd say. It's not really a day challenge, but the challenge is to just take time when you receive both criticism and an insult, the nearest one in the future, and I just want you to think, like I said, what does it mean? What's this getting at? And if you can change it, if you can meddle with it, it's criticism. And if it's something you can't change, it's likely an insult. But like I said, you can't change your face, so that guy's probably just insulting you, so fuck him. But if it's something you can change, like your clothing style, give it a look. Maybe you can throw in a little bit more fancy stuff. You never know. You could benefit. Listen to people's criticisms. But my challenge for you is to actually try identifying the difference, if you don't already, and even if you do. So give that challenge a go, and I hope this video has helped you a ton. Take care, my friend.